Hello everyone.
Hey.
So we can start. Um, if you have any questions regarding the last week, we discussed application layer, right? In application layer, we have different functionalities, especially we saw how website works, right? HTTP, SMTP for sending emails, and then DNS, how we can resolve domain names into IP addresses. Okay. So within a 1 week, we have different issues, especially at NUIG regarding the internet. And obviously, Facebook was also down, Facebook and WhatsApp services for 6-7 hours. Okay. So any comment? Do you know why Facebook was down or WhatsApp? Did you read somewhere? And obviously it was because of this internet thing. So any idea why Facebook was down? You know that Facebook was down, right?
Yes.
Okay. Remember in the last week we were discussing about DNS thing, right? Domain name service. And I told you that many years ago YouTube was down because someone manipulated the data of DNS, and same is the case with Facebook. Problem was with DNS settings. They said like it was not from the outsider, but there's some internal issue with the settings. Okay, so that's why Facebook and Twitter and Instagram services are down, right? So because of that domain name issue, because if you cannot resolve host, obviously you cannot access that website. Simple as that. Okay. So we saw in the last lecture that in how DNS works, like we have hierarchies of different servers, and they provide us different mapping of different domain names and their IP addresses. And obviously, if this computer is unable to find out IP address of Facebook, then definitely it cannot connect to the server of Facebook or any other web server, right? So this was the main issue, that DNS settings, their local DNS settings were wrong, and then because they keep sharing DNS settings, and obviously after some time it will be propagated all over the world, and obviously then that particular website will go down if DNS settings would be down. It could be cyber attack, it could be done internally, like your internal local network administrator is trying to update something and he updated wrong values in the server settings. Okay, just like at your home Wi-Fi router, if you are trying to connect with other settings, it may happen that you may not able to connect to the home Wi-Fi server. Okay. And what was the issue with NUIG, and it's still going on? Any idea? What is the issue? Why internet is down in NUIG for last 1 week? Cyber attack. Yeah, we discussed this thing. Because remember from the first lecture, we are discussing this thing that all the resources are shared. Okay. Within NUIG has control over the resources of this router and other LAN devices within NUIG premises, but they have no control outside the NUIG network. Okay, so they are relying on different companies, they are relying on different ISP providers, service providers, and if there is some issue, then obviously this could be a problem. So yeah, cyber attack sort of thing on NUIG network, that someone literally like they hacked username and password of very important root level person, and obviously if username and password or credential information is compromised, there is a high chance he can get data of all other things. But so far they have said that only username password was compromised, but there was no as such data stealing sort of thing. So that's why so firstly, so can anyone tell, like, okay, cyber attack, what was the first step they did? they cut off NUIG internet to outside world. Okay, this is very important. In every cyber attack, you have to secure your resources, because your resources are connected via internet, so they just simply disconnect that thing so that data cannot be transferred outside NUIG network. Okay, so but there are so many ways. Might be the intruder is sitting inside NUIG and he is just waiting, collecting data on this or his or her laptop, and then he can go outside NUIG and connect and transfer data, so no one knows. Okay, so so that's why network security is very important. That otherwise making network applications are very easy nowadays. In 10-20 lines you can make very similar applications to WhatsApp, let's say, if you have resources and if you have cloud computing sort of thing at the back end. So in terms of coding, in terms of programming, you don't need so much configuration. Obviously you would need definitely GUI of WhatsApp or any other application. That's a different thing, making a graphical user interface. But in terms of configuring or sending data over the internet is not it's not time taken in terms of development process. So we are discussing different layers of the internet, and we discussed this thing that every layer has different functionalities. Okay, at the sender and the receiver, both layers are virtually communicating with each other. Okay, so transport layer at the sender side would be communicating with the transport layer of the receiver side. So both layers same, right? We have discussed this thing many times. So if you have any question, you can ask. So most of you are like, we have exchange program, Erasmus students are also here taking this course, but mostly this course is because for BIS people, right? So for you, you have to understand that what are the main crux of the internet, like what we can do, what are the restrictions there, or why security is important. And it is good within a week you have seen two very big examples, like 6-7 hours of that if Facebook was down or WhatsApp was down, obviously they have lost millions of dollars of revenue, right? It's not because per minute they are earning $0.1 million or something. So you can multiply 1 minute into any time, like 6 hours. So you can calculate how much they have lost, right? So obviously, but 6 hours is not that much. But if you think like if that blockage sort of thing is for Google, Facebook, Twitter as well, and for many days, then obviously many businesses would suffer, and especially small businesses which are more reliant on the internet, right? And you know that most of the companies like Amazon, eBay, Airbnb, Uber, they are totally 100% relying on the internet. Okay, even they don't have resources, they don't have their own cars, they don't have their own products, but they are selling products, right? Just because of the internet. So that's why the internet is very important. And but because of this federated system, we have so much diversity and resources, and anyone can simply hack or anyone can simply attack different things, right? If there were some governments providing political asylum sort of thing, many people can easily down the internet, or they can hack very easily if governments are supporting them. Okay, but still they are supporting them, otherwise no, they cannot exist. So it is possible, because you know that whenever you are creating some log, so there must be some key, right? So for any security sort of thing, there must be some keys, and if you know the nitty-gritty of that log, you can easily compromise that key. So layered internet protocol stack, we have discussed application layer. Today we will be starting transport layer. This is very important layer because in transport layer, this transport layer is responsible for process to process communication. We discussed this thing, what is a process. When we are using WhatsApp on our mobile, technically operating system will create a one process for WhatsApp application to handle all the functionalities of the WhatsApp. Okay, so one process which is running by operating system. It could be on your computer, and obviously Android and iOS, they are all different operating systems for different platforms. So this transport layer is for process to process communication. Okay, and this is very important because if this device, let's suppose this device is a receiver and I'm receiving some data from some other device, and that device is very fast and even the link is very fast, but this device is very slow. It could be my mobile, right? So how I will tell that please slow down things, right? Or I'm not getting data. So this sort of thing like control flow, reliability sort of thing, it would be the functionality of transport layer. That's why this transport layer is very important, because process to process communication is done by transport layer. So we have discussed this thing. We have different protocols: HTTP, IMAP, SMTP, DNS. What is the purpose of IMAP? Can anyone tell why we use this protocol, IMAP? No? No one knows? Okay, so basically SMTP is for sending email, IMAP is for receiving email. Okay, whenever you are using your Gmail to retrieve your emails, you are using IMAP or POP3 protocol. Okay,
for sending and receiving email.
sorry,
For sending and receiving, or just sending, or what did you say?
for receiving only.
Receiving.
For sending we use SMTP protocol.
Okay.
Okay, so after this course at least we should know that what is the functionality of this protocol. Okay, and this protocol belongs to which layer, application layer or transport layer. In transport layer, this is a process to process data transfer sort of thing, and we have two very important protocols, TCP and UDP. We will discuss both these protocols today. Then we have network and routing of data from source to destination. So basically host to host, so host to host communication is via network layer. Okay, so routers are there. So IP is a very famous protocol for network layer. Then we have link layer, and this link layer is hop to hop. Okay, hop to hop means laptop or device directly connected to this laptop. So they are, if I am sending data to, let's suppose, this Wi-Fi router, this communication is hop to hop communication, and this communication would be handled by link layer. Okay, and network layer is host to host. If I am sending my data to the Google server, then this would be routing and forwarding sort of thing would be handled by network layer. Okay, and then we have physical, in which we have different Ethernet or wires, right? So functionality of transport layer, we will discuss this today. So understand principles behind transport layer services. First service is multiplexing and demultiplexing. Okay, what is multiplexing? Multiplexing. What is the meaning of multiplexing? No idea about multiplexing?
Is it something to do with like things working synchronized?
Synchronize, okay,
Like in the same terms?
okay. Then another important service of transport layer is reliable data transfer, okay, reliability. And then we have flow control, okay. Like the data, if sender is very fast and the receiver is slower, right? Then obviously receiver has to tell to the sender that you have to slow down that data sending speed, right? So this is flow control. We will discuss this thing. Then we have congestion control, okay? So they are very important functionalities. Okay. So transport services and protocols provide logical communication between application processes running on different hosts, okay? So for example, if I have a one machine here, right, communicating with some machine, let's suppose here, this one, if these two machines are communicating with each other, so this is application process, because one application would be running here, right, and one application would be running here. It could be WhatsApp application. For example, you are sending WhatsApp message to your friend all over the internet, somewhere around the world, right, here to this server or machine, right, or even it could be as same wireless connection here. So this sort of communication is logical communication, right, between application processes running on different hosts, okay. So this would be handled by transport layer. So all the communication that would be coming in between, finding a path, that would be sort of network communication, and it would be handled by network layer, okay. So transport protocols, actions in end systems. So sender will be breaking obviously application messages into segments and passes to network layer, and receiver would reassemble segments into messages and passes to application layer, okay. So two important transport protocols are TCP and UDP. So here is another example with some analogy. Like for example, we have two houses, each having 12 kids, and one kid has only one friend in another house, okay. It means that two processes, WhatsApp friend, at Bill's home there is a one kid whose name is also WhatsApp, okay. So they are sending data, but obviously they would be sending in terms of letters, right. So hosts are just houses, two houses, processes are kids. So application messages would be letters in the envelopes. So by this analogy, simply logical communication between hosts would be handled by network layer, okay. Like two houses are exchanging 12 letters with each other, so this sort of thing would be done by network layer. But transport layer would be logical communication between processes, so that letters envelopes, right. So application messages would be letters in envelopes. Transport protocol, Ann and Bill, who demugs to in-house siblings, obviously they would provide in-house letters, right. And network layer protocol will be a postal service, on post or any other postal service, because they are sending 12 letters to other house. So it would be handled by network layer, okay. So transport layer actions, for example, this is a sender and receiver. So sender is passed an application layer message to the transport layer. It will add one header information, okay. So what would be in the header information? All the functionalities of the transport layer, like flow control, reliability sort of thing, okay. So this header information is technically part of transport layer thing. This header information is a data that is related to the transport layer. Okay, so message is an actual message that application, like for example, if you are sending WhatsApp one picture, one image to someone, this image is, let's say, app message. Okay, and you are adding another header of transport layer, and this transport layer header will contain information that would help receiver to in terms of congestion control, in terms of reliability, acknowledgements would be there. Similarly, receiver will send again about how much data he can pick within 1 minute or 1 second. Okay, it will let sender like know that what would be the speed of the data to send, so that there wouldn't be any issue with flow control. And then it joins and creates segment. We call this sort of thing is segment, and it will passes segment to the IP network layer. Okay, and then obviously network layer would and link layer via physical link. This data would be here, and then it could be passed to the socket, right? So receiver receives segment from IP, checks header values, right? Extract application layer message, and demultiplexes message up to application via socket. Okay, we will discuss what is multiplexing and demultiplexing shortly. So this is the main functionality of transport layer. Any question? So all the functionalities of any layer would be part of header, right? We discussed this thing that for application layer, they would be adding some header information. So like if we have an image, it will be converted into, let's suppose, 10 parts. And then for each 10 part, it will contain header information. And every layer will pick its header information and do accordingly, okay? So TCP is transmission control protocol, which is reliable in order delivery. We will discuss why order, because when we are converting or dividing our packet into 10 sub packets, we have to number it, right? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. And because at the application layer, they have to reassemble this packet and make a one message for the application layer to display, right? And obviously ordering is important. Otherwise, you would be sending your image and it would be different image when it would be joined, right? Because all of your data would be going in 1010 bits formos thing, right? So that ordering is important. Then congestion control. What is congestion? What is congestion? Traffic congestion. So who will tell what is a traffic congestion? Traffic jam? No? You don't know?
Often the flow and build up like cars or traffic jams.
Yeah, so basically same like traffic jam, when you are sending data, because this link would be shared, so there are chances that that particular link is congested, okay? And obviously because of congestion, there would be delays in sending data. So that's why sometimes you receive browsing is slow. This is because of congestion over the network, okay? Because network link has some capacity, and if many users are using the same network link, or if they are trying to access the same server, let's suppose Facebook server, there would be definitely congestion, okay? But this congestion control is done by in TCP. So we will discuss how this is happening in the TCP. Then we have flow control and connection setup. Connection setup is just handshaking, sending acknowledgement between sender and receiver that okay, I am now ready to send data or receive data. Okay, so this is connection setup. But in UDP, UDP is unreliable, unordered delivery. Okay, and obviously there is no frills, no extra things, functionality of best efforts. Okay, so there is no, but why we are using UDP? Because we want communication fast. Okay, so there is no connection setup sort of thing, there is no flow control sort of thing, there is no congestion control, there is no reliability, there is no in order delivery in UDP. Okay, but obviously it's good for different services. If you want to send data and you don't care about loss, some sort of flow control sort of thing, right? For example, there are so many DNS server works on UDP because they are sharing information so many times and they don't care even if they only receive 80% of the information, because they know that every 5 minutes I will resend that data. Okay, so that's why they use UDP, because if they use TCP, obviously it would be a burden on the network layer, so that's why they use UDP. So multiplexing and demultiplexing. So simply multiplexing is that we are receiving data from multiple applications and we multiplex it and we are sending this data to the transport layer, okay, to the network layer. So just like, for example, this transport layer is receiving data from Skype or Firefox or Netflix from the applications, different applications. So it will multiplex that data, join that data, and it will send to the network layer, and obviously then to link layer, right? But at the receiver end, we have to demultiplex that data, okay? And so transport layer has the functionality of demultiplexing as well, because then transport layer have to decide this packet is for Skype, this packet is for let's say Netflix, right? So this would be done at transport layer. So this is demultiplexing. Any idea how this transport layer will know this process is for Skype and this process is for Netflix? We discussed this thing many times in the class as well. How this transport layer will know while doing demultiplexing. Right, on this computer, if I am connected to the internet, I am receiving multiple packets. My transport layer is receiving multiple packets for different applications. So how this transport layer will send data to Skype? Why your WhatsApp message is not open on Zoom application, and why you are not receiving your Zoom call on Skype application? How is it possible? Can anyone tell? Just like a courier service, they have home numbers. They do receive one very large bulk of packet from US, right, for Galway people, but they know that inside then there would be information of house number or postal code sort of things, right? So similarly, transport layer do receive data, but it also contains source port number or destination port number, right? So on the basis of port numbers, they know that, okay, this destination port number is 2213, so they will send this particular data to 2213. and on Skype would be running on 2213, so they will pick data from that port. Okay. So for example, on HTTP server, we have different clients that are connected to this HTTP server here, right? And another client 2, this is a process. So transport layer will know that if this data is coming, what is the source port and what is the destination port, and this process was bound to some port number. Okay. So by this way, so multiplexing could be just like starting of any motorway where we have different ways, different roads that are merging into one and like to the motorway, and simply after the even on the motorway demultiplexing is there are so many exits. Okay, so this is same thing in transport layer, multiplexing and demultiplexing. So here HTTP message, again we are adding one header information, right? And so these processes can communicate with each other by using transport layer, and how this multiplexing and demultiplexing will work. So multiplexing at sender handle data from multiple sockets at transport header, or it will be later used by demultiplexing. And then demultiplexing at receiver end will use user header info to deliver received segments to correct socket. Okay, so that's why that socket number is very important, and we discussed this socket sort of thing many times. It's a virtual numbers. Around every computer or every network card has around 65,000 sockets port numbers, right? And for every process they assign one unique socket. Okay, and that's why network card would be able to send data to the particular application very easily, because they know that Skype is bound to 2210 socket number. Okay, or port number. So this information will be sent to the client, and then obviously transport layer can demultiplex that thing. So how demultiplexing works: host receives IP datagrams. Each datagram has source IP, right, and destination IP address. Okay, each datagram carries one transport layer segment. Each segment has source, destination, port number. So we will see in UDP we have no concern about so much concern about like different things, but in TCP we require a lot of addresses. So can someone list down how many addresses we have discussed so far? Different type of addresses. Can someone list down? For communication over the internet, we require different types of internet addresses, right? Different addresses, not internet addresses, different addresses. So first one is definitely needed is IP address, right? IP address, you require IP address of the source and IP address of the destination, because if destination wants to send data back, you require IP address of the source, right? And similarly, for each processes, you must have some port number. So this is another address. So IP addresses, port numbers, then every network card has its own MAC address, okay? Unique address of that network card. So this sort of combination of source IP address, destination IP address, similarly source MAC address, destination MAC address, source port and destination port. So technically there are 6 addresses that are commonly required. In some cases it could be 4 or 3, that's fine, but maximum. So there are 6 addresses that we do require to communicate over the internet, okay? So for example, that UDP in TCP UDP segment, we are mentioning that's why source port number and destination port number. So this is very important for demultiplexing, because at the receiver end, they should know that what is the destination port, what this data is for, okay? So TCP socket identified by 4 tuple: source IP address, source port number, destination IP address, and destination port number, okay? So there are 4 important things that we have to send. That MAC address, like right now we are discussing transport layer, then we will be discussing network layer, then there will be link layer. That link layer would require your MAC address. I told you that how this Wi-Fi router will send data to this laptop on the basis of MAC, because for internally they do require MAC address, okay, of this network card. But because at the TCP we are talking about process to process communication, so we need this 4 tuple important: source IP address, source port number, destination IP address, and destination port number. So receiver uses all 4 values to direct segment to the appropriate socket, okay? On the basis of these 4 values, it will decide appropriate socket to send data. So server may support many simultaneous TCP sockets, each socket identified by its own 4 tuple, okay? So why we are calling server? Because on server we have multiple clients can connect to that particular server, right? So it means that for each client it will be assigning some sort of socket to each process. So that's why when we are saying that this server can handle 100 simultaneous connections, it means that they can create 100 sockets for particular processes, okay? So this is the capacity of the server. Like if I am saying that let's suppose Facebook can handle 1 million users simultaneously, it means that their servers can then create 1 million sockets at a time, okay? And if obviously if there is one person who is coming after 1 million person and there is no socket available, then obviously he cannot connect to the Facebook server, okay? So that's why we receive that, okay, there is a lot of load on NUIG website, or let's suppose on some other website on which so many people are surfing, because they have some capacity, okay? Every server has capacity to create number of sockets, how many connections they can simultaneously open. So we can summarize this thing: multiplexing, demultiplexing based on segment, datagram, header field values. In UDP, demultiplexing using destination port number only, okay? Because they don't care about source port, right? Because in UDP they are not creating a mutual connection, they are just receiving data, okay? So they don't require source port sort of thing, or even source IP address. But in TCP, for demultiplexing, we need 4 things: source and destination IP addresses and port numbers, okay? Okay, so any question about multiplexing, demultiplexing, or overall functionality of the transport layer? Who will tell what are the important services of transport layer from this side? What are the important functionalities of transport layer? What is the purpose of transport layer in the internet stack? What is the purpose of transport layer? Anyone?
It's a process-to-process style transfer using TCP or UDP.
Okay, good. This is the main functionality of the transport layer. Okay, yeah. And in terms of services, can anyone tell what are the important services transport layer is providing? Okay, I can tell you one thing, just like reliability or flow control. What else? Good. Congestion control. So far we have discussed functionality of transport layer, okay? Main important things that transport layer have to do. And there are two important protocols, UDP and TCP. So in this lecture we will discuss UDP and TCP, and then some functionalities like flow control and congestion control. So UDP is basically user datagram protocol. UDP stands for user datagram protocol. And we discussed this thing that like they don't have any mechanism about flow control or reliability sort of thing. Similarly, even they don't care if they are sending data out of order, okay? And it is connectionless. So the main difference between TCP and UDP is that TCP is connection oriented, okay? And UDP is connectionless. What does it mean connectionless? I am sending, if this computer wants to send data to another computer by using UDP protocol, they will quickly send data. They will not check that that connection is established, that server is up or no. So there is no as such handshake sort of thing, okay? So that's why UDP is fast, because they are not taking of connection, even no data flow sort of thing, okay? So UDP is connectionless, no handshaking between UDP, sender and receiver. Each UDP segment handled independently of others, okay? So it means that because it's not taking care of any order, so it means that they are just taking care of one packet at a time, okay? Because they are considering all packets independent, okay? There is no sequence number, so they are not taking care of this packet numbering thing. So why is there a UDP? No connection establishment, which can add RTT delay, okay, and response to time or this sort of thing. And then simply no connection state at sender and receiver end. That's why smaller header size, okay, because there is no information UDP is storing. And obviously it cannot help in congestion control, okay. TCP can. So congestion control can be done at network layer. Obviously routers are, because routers are sending data, they are also controlling different sort of thing, but they don't have any idea about the capacity of the receiver side, okay. So this transport layer knows that, TCP especially, so they can do much better congestion control. So UDP can be used in streaming multimedia applications, okay, because they are loss tolerant. If you are watching some match, it's okay if after some time you haven't seen 1 second of match, instead of waiting for many times, right? Because TCP would be time taken. And similarly for DNS is at the top application layer protocol. So DNS would be using UDP, okay. SNMP is simple network management protocol. So this is also, they are also using UDP. So this like within a network, if they want to communicate with different devices, then they use SNMP protocol. And for this sort of communication, they also use UDP at the transport layer, okay. and HTTP3 is also using UDP. We will discuss in some lecture what is the difference between basic HTTP1 and HTTP2 and then HTTP3. So if reliable transfer needed over UDP, then obviously HTTP sort of thing add needed reliability at application. And obviously if transport layer is not providing some sort of congestion control, then even you can write your code at application layer to check or handle congestion control. Okay. So just remember that these layers are well defined for different functionalities, and in your application, if one layer is not providing some particular service, you can add that particular service on top of it. Okay. So for example, your transport layer, you are using UDP protocol, and we know that in UDP transport, in UDP layer, there is as such no congestion control, right? We know that at transport layer, if we are using UDP, there is no congestion control. Okay. But at the application layer, we can ensure congestion control by using our application at the application layer. Okay. So these services can be shuffled to some top services, but obviously you are adding different layers, so it means that it will take more time. Okay. Is it clear or no? If some service, if some layer is not providing some service, right, you can write that service on the top layer as well in your application. Okay. So for example, I want some application very similar to the WhatsApp, but at the transport layer I want UDP so that my communication would be fast. But I know that UDP is not reliable. So what could be the solution? Can anyone tell? Due to different reasons, and especially in terms of fast communication, I need UDP in my transport layer, okay, for my application. But my application also require one sort of thing, which is reliability. How is it possible that while using UDP, I can ensure somehow reliability? Can anyone tell? Reliability or flow control or in order communication. So if UDP is not providing that service, you can write that service at the top layer, at the application layer. Simple as that. Okay. So if UDP is not providing that particular service, you can simply write that control, make that control at the application layer, because application layer is in your hands. You cannot change UDP protocol or TCP protocol, but you can change application layer sort of thing. Okay. So at the top, after the GUI, you can control, okay, for every messages, I will check its order. If it's in order, then I will display it on the GUI. Okay. So by this way, if there is some functionality which is not in bottom layers, you can add that functionality at the top layer. Okay. You can program it.
You just do it with code or?
Yeah. So for example, in WhatsApp, in current scenario, WhatsApp is using TCP. Okay. It means that in order communication. Okay. So if you are sending images one by one, so chances are there that these images will receive in the same order. Okay. Like after 1 second, you are sending 3-4 images, then obviously previous images will come before the next one. But if you want to control somehow that WhatsApp should work UDP, because of TCP your messages are transferring very slow, and you say, okay, I can use UDP for that, then you have to code it at the top layer, at the application layer, or in the application of WhatsApp. It will check simply, it will check, okay, this message is in order or not. Okay, every message would have some number, 23, 24, 25. So you have to present that number in that message in the same order. Okay, so, but you have to code it,
Yeah.
program it.
But if this like is a question in the exams or like, yeah, I don't know. But do you have, can you just write that you need to add a reliability at the application layer? You don't have to write how to, you don't have to explain like how to do it. Or what do you want us to, what do you want the, what's the answer?
At least your answer should be in such a way that you know that this functionality is possible or not possible.
Okay, okay.
You can comment on that thing. How it would be done, obviously we are not taking some programming course or we are not doing programming, but we should know that this is possible or not possible. Okay.
Okay, yeah,
So for example, if I am saying that if someone is insisting to make application in UDP and it should be reliable, then you should comment that, okay, because of UDP reliability is not possible, but at application layer we make some mechanism so that we can make this possible, that communication is reliable. Okay.
okay.
So at least this sort of thing should be there. Okay. So this is UDP. Main thing, important thing is this format. So in UDP, we only need source port number, destination port number, length, and checksum. And this is data that is coming from the application layer. So this is a header information. Okay. Checksum is for simply error checking sort of thing, and it's very easy to compute. They simply add all numbers and put some value here, and then at the receiver end, when they are getting data, they will again sum that numbers, and if that number is same as checksum, they can say that, okay, we have received all correct data. Okay, all bits. And obviously, so this checksum field is for error detection sort of thing. But there are some chances that because we are sending data in bits, right? And even you know that 1010 sort of thing, right? So it is possible that we have two errors. Like instead of 1, we received 0, but in the same packet when we were expecting 1, we received 0. So 2 errors is not making a 1 correct decision, but checksum would be same. Sum would be same. 1 0, right? Like sum of 110 is, let's suppose, 2, and obviously 101 is also 2, but both data are different, right? So 2 errors can correct this checksum value, but overall obviously there would be error in data transmission. So this checksum, but in most of the cases this checksum works that they simply add, and at the receiver end they check that addition of received bits is equal to the checksum value that sender has sent. So transport layer actions for UDP sender actions are simply is pass an application layer message. For example, it's SNMP message, simple network management protocol message. It will add one UDP header. So this header is something like this. Okay, this is a size of source port. Okay, so size of every header field. Okay, so UDP sender action, it determines UDP segment header field value and creates UDP segment, passes segment to IP to the next layer, and then via link and physical layer this segment would be transferred to the receiver side, and obviously this is SNMP client, and then it will go to the transport layer, and then on the basis of this transport layer of the receiver will decide something, will check all information, and then it will send to the particular socket. So demultiplexes, okay. So this is UDP segment format. This is application data payload, and then it only contains 34 bits data for source port number and destination port number, 16 bits each for this one, and then length and checksum 32 bits. Okay. Any question about UDP? So technically in UDP we are adding this header information, okay? And why we are adding this source port destination port number? Because we need it for demultiplexes purposes, and demultiplexes functionality would be done by the receiver transport layer, okay? So in the then we can discuss TCP. So TCP just point to point, one sender, one receiver, and it's reliable. And full duplex data, full duplex means that bidirectional data flow in same connection. And TCP will define what would be the maximum segment size. We will discuss this thing later on. Then we have cumulative acknowledgements. This is important, okay? In UDP, there is no acknowledgement of data, okay? If I am sending some data by using UDP protocol from this computer to this computer, I will not receive any acknowledgement from this computer. I don't know that this data have been received or not, okay, in UDP. But in TCP, we have cumulative acknowledgements of segments. Why it's cumulative? Like obviously, if I am sending 100 segments, obviously I don't expect to send acknowledgement of each and every packet. Otherwise, there would be a lot of traffic on the internet, right? On the network. So cumulative means when I receive acknowledgement of segment number 30 from the receiver, it means that I have received all the packets before 30 sequence, okay? So this is why cumulative. Like after 30 packets, they have received, let's suppose 60, they will again send another acknowledgement which would be specifying 60. It means that 1 to 60 have been received at the receiver end. So that's why this is cumulative acknowledgements, not single acknowledgement for each packet is not there. Otherwise, it's not possible, right? And then TCP, the good thing is about TCP is that pipelining sort of thing, TCP congestion and flow control set window size. So in TCP header, there is information about the flow control, okay? Receiver will tell the sender, okay, my buffer has only size of 2 MB empty space. So sender will decide, okay, on the basis of 2 MB, I have to send data with this speed, okay? So same is the case with congestion control. If sender receives information, acknowledgements very late, what does it mean? That there is congestion, right? Like if sender is receiving acknowledgements very late as compared to the expected time, round trip time, we will see this thing that when sender is sending some data to the receiver, they know that there would be some expected time to send or receive acknowledgements, right? But after that time, they know that, okay, there is some problem. Either the link was very congested or the data has been lost, okay? So it is connection oriented handshaking, and this connection is three-way handshaking. We will discuss this thing. And we discuss this thing, flow control. So this is a TCP segment structure in terms of 32 bits, source port, destination ports. Then we have sequence number. This sequence number was not there in UDP, okay? So basically segment sequence number, counting bytes of data into byte stream. Okay. Then there is one field for acknowledgement number. Okay. So acknowledgement is sequence number of next expected byte. Okay. So if I am sending 30 as an acknowledgement, it means that all the segments before 30 I have received that thing, and now I am expecting sequence number 30, packet number 30. Okay. And then there are different other fields, but we will not discuss in detail. So same is the case. This is same application data from the top layer. Internet checksum is there, very similar to the UDP thing for error detection. And then we have some optional values of different variable lengths. Okay. And there are some other flags for different connection management thing. There is a receive window. So this data would be used for flow control. Okay. So number of bytes receiver willing to accept. So when you are making some connection to one another machine, and they would be sending acknowledgements of the connection, they will also tell, okay, my capacity of buffer flow is this one, so you have to send only data of this size to the sender. Okay. So if there is some congestion, then these flags would be true or false according to the congestion notification messages. So for example, we have this data, and then obviously we would be dividing this data into different segments, and this window size will determine the data to be sent. Okay. And this green means they have received acknowledgement of this data. Okay. And not in technically, but just to displaying, I'm showing you that they will keep recording of different things. Okay. So acknowledgements are simply sequence number of next byte expected from other side, and acknowledgements are cumulative. So how receiver handles out of order segments? It is possible that segment number 20 is received earlier than the segment number 19. It is possible, right? How is it possible? Because when you are deciding paths between host and destination, it is possible that router have selected different path for the 20th segment, and that path was more fast as compared to the other path. Okay, it is possible that segments can reach earlier, but then your application or TCP wouldn't say anything about the order, out of order segments, but you can simply discard that thing if you have, because you know that you have sent acknowledgements of 29, or you are expecting 30 number segment, right? So if 31 is received, you can simply discard it, and obviously sender has to resend that 31 number segment. So TCP sequence numbers acknowledgements, here is one example. So in host A, for example, if host is sending some data C, right, it will tell sequence number is 42, and previous acknowledgements of any previous data is 79. Okay. So host acknowledgements received of C, and it will echo back C data, and acknowledgement number would be 43. So what does it mean? Acknowledgement 43 is that like they have received data till 42. Okay, now it's expecting new sequence number 43. Okay, so then this host A will send new segment with sequence number 43. Okay, and obviously for this data sequence number was 79, so its acknowledgement was again sent. So you know that's why this communication is little bit slow as compared to UDP, because you have to acknowledge each other packets that you have received. Even if you have receiving acknowledgement from some other host, you have to again send acknowledgement of that you have received it, that acknowledgement. Okay. So, but because you are adding two headers in one packet, acknowledgement is there and sequence number is there. So by this way, this host is saying that they have received 79 number segment. Okay, this acknowledgement and expecting sequence number 80, and so sending new packet 43. Okay, so but there is some scenario that might be host has received data and they send acknowledgement, but that acknowledgement have been lost, right? It could be possible. So for example, this host sends one data sequence number 92 and 8 bytes of data, and host B has received this data, and then obviously because of cumulative acknowledgement, they would be sending data acknowledgement of 100, right? And then this acknowledged message have been lost, right? So as there is no acknowledgement of this data, right, this host doesn't know that acknowledgement was lost or actual data was lost. Okay, so they will resend sequence number 92, same data, and again acknowledgement 100 would be sent back to the host A. So that's why this TCP communication is taking time, because they are considering acknowledgement, and that's why obviously by this way we can implement reliability of the data. We know that this data have been transferred to the other device. Okay, any question?
So host A feels that it hasn't received something from host B, and then it's like send it again. Is that how it works?
Basically this 92, when they are sending 92, host A is expecting acknowledgement something of 92 or at least more than 92 sort of thing, right? And they have some timeout thing, okay, RTT, response time. Okay, so after this timeout thing, host A will see, okay, it means that this data haven't been received by the host B, so they will resend that data. Okay, because they don't know the acknowledgement was lost. Whole data was there, they have stored it, but that's why. Okay, so it is possible, for example, host A, another scenario, that sequence number 92 and of 8 bytes, and then another sequence number of 100 of 20 bytes. So that's why 92 plus 8 is 100, and 100 plus 20 is, yeah. So received, both packets received, acknowledgement sent, accumulative acknowledgement sent, and both acknowledgement received. Then, but because of delay, the data was not lost, right? Here, that acknowledgement was not lost, but timeout because of delay, because of congestion. This was timeout. So after this timeout, it will simply resend that data 92, sequence number 92. Okay, but this sender has already received this packet, and till 120 this data, this sender has this data, so it will send a cumulative acknowledgement of 120, not for 100 sort of thing. Okay, so that's why this is cumulative, because they have already have data till 120 sequence number. Okay, so it will resend acknowledgement of 120 here. So there are different scenarios. You can see, like sometimes acknowledgement can be, and so yeah. So for example, if we have we are sending 5 different packets or segments. So obviously they would have some cumulative acknowledgements of different thing, right? And this timeout period is this one. So if we increase this timeout period, then obviously this would be more fast, right? So why we are increasing this timeout period? So that if some acknowledgement is coming late, we don't have to resend data again, okay? So because of congestion control, TCP can increase timeout period as well during the communication. If they come to know that, okay, there is congestion, so they will increase actual timeout period because they know that might be acknowledgements are coming late to the data. So by this way, we can transmit data more fast in TCP. Okay. So for flow control, any question? So the issue with flow control is at the receiver end, right? I can send data at some speed, but I am not sure that receiver can receive that data or not, right? So this flow control problem is because of this thing that receiver is able to receive that data at same speed or not. And when we are talking about at the same speed, technically we are talking about the buffer size of the receiver. Okay, if they cannot store data quickly, might be I have optical fiber link with this laptop, but still my laptop could be slow. It could be very limited RAM or some other things, right? So my machine buffer space could be very limited. So by TCP, in TCP, I can simply mention my receiver buffer size. So according to the receiver buffer size, sender will control the flow, okay? So, okay, simply, obviously this is because of flow control sort of thing. So here we have in TCP segment, we have one header, we have one information about receive window, okay? So number of bytes receiver willing to accept. So when they are establishing some connection, receiver will tell, okay, this sort of the number of bytes should be less than this, okay? I cannot receive data at more speed more than this, okay? So in this header, receiver will be sending data of receiver window size. So by this way, when this packet will be received to the sender side, they will know that, okay, I have to send data at this speed. So that's why flow control is possible by using TCP. Okay, so last thing about this lecture is establishing a connection in TCP. Two-way handshake is very normal, like in real life. Usually we do this thing, right? So if we want to establish connection with a server, it would be two-way handshake sort of thing, okay? So you have to open connection and then you have to receive that, okay, connection has been opened. But there is some problem with this sort of thing that might be there are some delays, or it could be possible that it could be after the timeout thing. So usually in TCP sort of thing, TCP uses three-way handshake, okay? So this is a problem, like even if this problem, yeah. So it could be after the connection, half open connection. So that's why. So just like this is a problem of two-way handshake. For example, if this machine is establishing one connection with this one, and acknowledgement of this connection is delayed, then this machine, after the timeout, they will again request for connection. Okay. So technically, if this message would be received at the receiver end, there would be two connections established, right? Because there would be two requests from the same client. Okay. So this is a problem of two-way handshake thing. So that's why in TCP we use three-way handshake. So in three-way handshake, simply we will request for a connection establishment, then acknowledgement would be sent, and then it will just listening to the same thing that okay, connection to this client have been created, and then they will again send another acknowledgement, and then after that full connection would be established. Okay. So it just like that three-way handshake is that when you are asking someone that can you do this thing, other person will say yes, then I will say okay, then do it, then he will do that work, right? So it's some sort of three-way handshake sort of thing. So same is the case with TCP. I will tell to the server that I want to make a connection. Is connection available? Server will say yes, but it will not create a connection. Okay. Then that yes from the server will go to the receiver side, and receiver will know okay, I can make a connection. Then it will request a connection to the server, and then connection would be established between server. Okay, so that's why this is three-way handshake, and TCP uses this thing, not two-way handshake sort of thing. Any question? Closing a TCP connection is very simple. You simply have to, because client and server each close their side of connection, and they send TCP segment with fin bit is equals to 1. This fin bit was there when we were discussing TCP header information. Okay, so if you send, otherwise by default it's 0, but if you send 1, it means that you are asking to close the connection. Okay, and respond to receive fin with acknowledgement. So you have to respond acknowledgement for this fin message as well. So we discussed this thing that congestion control can be done at transport layer, but obviously most of the congestion control is controlling by the network layer as well, because routers are communicating with each other and they know which link has more traffic, so they don't send that traffic to that link. Okay, but TCP can control congestion, and it's very easy because if I'm expecting some data or its acknowledgement in particular timeout period, and if I am not getting that acknowledgements, then I can assume that there is congestion within the network, right? It's very easy. So by this way, I can slow down data sending speed. Similarly, receiver can tell that, okay, this you can slow down, or there is some congestion in the network. So congestion could be of different reasons. Obviously, long delays queuing in router buffers, okay, and packet loss, buffer overflow at routers. So this is the main reason that if some router is congested, obviously they will lose packets, and because of this, obviously slow communication between sender and receiver. Okay. So end-to-end congestion control is simply that network is not providing any information about the congestion, but your sender and receiver have some mechanism so that they can know that, okay, there is some problem in the network. And it's very easy to find out on the basis of response time or timeout sort of thing, okay? So if they are getting data and acknowledgements according to the expected time, they can assume that there is no congestion, right? And if they are not getting data, there is so much delay, then they can decide, okay, this delay could be a reason that your receiver is slow, but if receiver is saying, okay, I'm okay to send data at 2 MB per second, supposed to be, but data is not receiving at that speed, it means that sender can easily know that there is this delay is because of network's delay, because of congestion, not because of this host machine, right? So network assisted congestion control, routers provide direct feedback to sending receiving host. So routers, we will discuss this thing when we will be discussing network layer, that they also provide information. So explicit congestion info, right? So TCP uses AIMD. This approach is very simple. Senders can increase sending rate until packet loss, okay? So then decrease sending rate on loss event. So initially they assume that there is no congestion, so they have high speed of sending data. But if there are some lost packets and sender knows that because they have to resend data again and again, then it will slow down the sending rate or decrease sending rate value, okay? So this is simply TCP sender sending rate. So it will vary over the time, right? And so it's AIMD is simply additive increase is there, and then additive increase right here. Then here it will find out, okay, there is some loss, additive increase, but multiplicative decrease, right? MD is for multiplicative decrease. So you can see addition is additive, speed. This is a speed sending rate at the y-axis. At the x-axis we have time. So, but at this point, if TCP finds there are so many packets, lost packets, they will multiplicatively decreasing the speed. So that's why M is there, multiplicative decrease. Now at the next time it will send at this time, this speed, okay? And then after the decreasing, it will again increase it on additive basis, right? Till so many lost packets are there. At this point, if there is, they found out that, okay, so many lost packets, then again multiplicative decrease, okay? So increase sending rate by 1 maximum segment size every RTT until loss detected, and multiplicative decrease cut sending rate in half at each loss event. So at this speed, loss half would be reduced, okay? And then additive increase. So by this way, TCP can easily control this sort of congestion. Okay. So any question about how TCP controls congestion control? I think in class, if you are more attentive, then I think you can get at least 90% of the concepts of this course very easily. So I always say to my students that you are spending your 1 hour or 2 hours, in fact, in the class for studying. So best is that, like, do study in the class. Don't take this time for extra time and then you have to go back and then you have to study again. Why not just study 5-6 hours in the classes? And obviously 70-80% of the course would be covered if you are very attentive, and if you are asking question, it's very good. So just an advice. So okay, so any question about TCP congestion control? Okay, now who will tell what is the functionality of transport layer? What are the functionalities of transport layer?
Reliable data transfer.
Sorry?
Reliable data transfer.
Reliable data transfer. Yeah. What else? Yeah. So congestion control is there, control flow is there, right? Reliability. Okay, we can stop here. So this is the end of today's lecture.